Hello, I'm Debbie Russ with the BBC News. Iraqi security forces have killed at least 13 anti-government protesters in the southern city of Nasiriyah. The authorities had been trying to clear a bridge that demonstrators had occupied for days. A source in the city said the clashes were continuing. Martin Patience reports.
Video footage being streamed online showed some protesters throwing stones and others using slingshots at the security forces. Hundreds of demonstrators have been killed in 2 months of anti-government demonstrations that have engulfed Iraq. The protesters are calling for an end to rampant government corruption and want more jobs and public services. Meanwhile, Iran has condemned the demonstrators who set the Iranian consulate on fire in the city of Najaf. This is the second time this month that an Iranian consulate in the country has been attacked by demonstrators.
China has branded the US malicious after President Trump signed into law a bill that seeks to support the autonomy of Hong Kong. The new law requires Washington to monitor Beijing's actions in Hong Kong. At a news conference, China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Gang Shuang said China would retaliate.
The Chinese government is unwavering in its determination to oppose any external forces interfering in Hong Kong's affairs, to implement one country, two systems, and to safeguard national sovereignty, security, and development interests. We advise the United States not to act arbitrarily, otherwise China will take firm countermeasures. All consequences arising from this must be borne by the United States.
3 health workers have been killed in the east of the Democratic Congo in 2 attacks on Ebola treatment centres. 4 other staff were critically injured in the raids in troubled Ituri province. Congo's head of Ebola response described the attacks as a significant blow. The militia doesn't believe Ebola exists and thinks the medical response is a plot to wipe out locals. South Korea's military says North Korea has fired 2 unidentified projectiles into the sea from its east coast. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said North Korea's repeated missile launches were a threat to the whole international community. Laura Bicker has more.
The short-range projectiles are likely to be from a super-large multiple rocket system, according to the South Korean military. The 2 weapons were fired at 30-second intervals and travelled 380 kilometres before landing in the Sea of Japan. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff warned that this type of act did not help efforts to alleviate tension on the Korean peninsula. The launch adds to what has been a more aggressive stance from Pyongyang in recent months, as talks with the US appear to have stalled.
BBC News. Prosecutors in Hungary have charged the captain of a cruise ship which crashed into a smaller vessel on the River Danube in May, killing 28 people. The Ukrainian captain is accused of negligence and failing to provide help in the disaster. His lawyers have previously said he did nothing wrong. The tourist boat sank after the collision in heavy rain. A court in the Maldives has sentenced the country's former president, Abdullah Yameen, to 5 years in prison after finding him guilty of money laundering. The court in the capital, Male, also ordered him to pay a fine of $5 million. Our South Asia editor, Jill McGivering, reports.
The charges against Mr Yameen focused on a payment of $1 million by a private company. It was supposed to go to the state, fees for leasing land to develop for tourism. Prosecutors said it went instead into the president's personal bank account. His supporters say the trial was politically motivated and he's expected to appeal. Mr Yameen was a controversial president, seen as pro-China and accused by his opponents of stifling both freedom of speech and political dissent.
The International Committee of the Red Cross says it will today repatriate nearly 130 Yemeni rebels who've been prisoners of war in Saudi Arabia. Earlier this week, the Saudis announced that they'd be freeing a group of men caught while fighting for the Houthi movement. The Saudis also said they would allow patients needing medical care to be flown out of the airport that serves the Houthi-held Yemeni capital, Sana'a. Japanese beer exports to South Korea fell to 0 last month as the 2 countries remain locked in a bitter dispute. Sales of brands such as Kirin and Asahi had plummeted recently as South Koreans boycotted Japanese products because of the row. But Japan has now said no beer was exported to South Korea in October. Previously, the market was worth more than $70 million a year. And that's the latest world news from the BBC.